This is the biggest issues that I have seen with ADHD that I've run thousands of tests over the years with adults with ADHD. And it's not dopamine. A lot of people think that is the biggest issue, but from my experience and running thousands of different tests on people with ADHD, it is not. Now, I'm going to talk about dopamine, but there's so many other things that are a bigger issue that I've tested that is, and I'm going to go with this from the greatest to the least in that order. So the very first one, and I'm going to show live case studies and examples of patients I've tested to seeing this. The biggest one that I see an issue is, let me get my pen here, is epinephrine. Now, when I test for this, about 98% of people that I've tested with ADHD are low in epinephrine levels. Now, why is that important? Why does that apply to people with ADHD? It's because epinephrine deals with stress, and stress is a huge component when it comes to people with ADHD. Another one, now this is not as big, but norepinephrine is a big one. About 60% of people that I've tested tend to be low in norepinephrine levels. Now, that's also really important where it can impact focus and also stress levels and managing stress. So what do you do in this case? So in this situation, when you see both norepinephrine and epinephrine, two supplements that you can use that are really powerful is L-theanine and rhodiola. Both of those can help improve the epinephrine and norepinephrine levels to help you manage stress better and more efficiently. Okay. There's also some other things that come into play, which I'm not going to talk about, but these cofactors like vitamin C, vitamin B3, SAMe, cortisol, those things, improving those things can also help with epinephrine and norepinephrine. Now, the next one that's really big that people don't even think about is cortisol. Now, it's more likely I see this as an issue with adults with ADHD, but it is a 92% issue. Everybody I've tested has had a 92% chance. So if you're watching this, there's a very high likelihood chance, and you're an adult with ADHD, there's a very high likely chance that your cortisol levels are low. Now, what does that have to do with ADHD? How is it impacting your ADHD specifically? Well, let me tell you. If you have low cortisol levels, not only is your energy low, but also your focus, concentration is going to be diminished throughout the day, just like this patient. It's diminished. It's very hard to be motivated, driven, and focused throughout the day if you do not have a sufficient amount of cortisol. It also, you're going to feel that complete burnout state mentally and physically. So this is why there's a very high likely chance if you're watching this, this is probably a big issue that you're dealing with. Like I said, I've tested and looked at all the data. 92% of the people I test do have this issue. Now, what do we do about it? There's a few things. One is usually I will just use adrenal desiccated or adrenal bovine and have them take it. Usually most people will have low cortisol levels in the morning. So first thing in the morning. Now, when we test and we see there's still issues in the afternoon, we'll also implement it in the afternoon. Now, we only do this for about 3 months as we're working on other things that are sabotaging your adrenals. And usually that has to do with stress. We talked about stress. So as we improve epinephrine and norepinephrine, that also helps improve cortisol too. Okay. So that's why we usually generally, when I'm working with someone, we don't need to be doing it long term, and you don't want to be dependent on something like this. Okay. The next thing that is a big, big issue is phenylethylamine. Probably heard me talk about this. This is an excitatory neurotransmitter that helps make dopamine. And when this is low, it does impact focus and motivation, drive, impacts memory, recall, all sorts of stuff that are very common with people with ADHD. Now, the thing is, how severe is this? It's 90% of the people I've tested. So there's a very high chance this is also an issue for you if you're someone that's dealing with ADHD. Because when I run these tests, 90% of the chance this tends to be low, people that we test. Now, there's a few things that you can to address this two main things as far as supplementing for this is directly supplementing phenylethylamine. You could do that to help improve levels, but sometimes the issue is the amino acid that helps make phenylethylamine. And so incorporating something like DL-phenylalanine to help support that. And by doing so, it's going to help this whole process to help improve focus, motivation, drive when you do this correctly. Now, the next thing, this is where I was surprised. When I was running these different tests, I really thought dopamine would be the main issue because we talk about how dopamine is the main issue. But from my experience, now it might be more true with kids because this sample size, which I think I'm in a very unique situation, is when I go look for research, I only see it for kids when it comes with ADHD. You don't see sample sizes of adults with ADHD, unfortunately. So I feel like I'm like the only one that has data because I specialize working with adults with ADHD and running these tests to have this actual data. So keep that in mind that this data is for people with adults with ADHD. And I found serotonin is a bigger issue than dopamine. Shocking. And it was 66%. So 60% of the people I tested had low serotonin levels. Now, here's the thing about serotonin. Serotonin, people think like, oh, it just means I'm going to feel more depressed. That's very true. But also serotonin does impact motivation and drive. So you can see how it kind of mixes like, oh, is it really dopamine or is it serotonin? From my experience, serotonin tends to be a little bit bigger of an issue, at least with adults, probably because there's just a lot more challenges as we get older. And so we start seeing serotonin levels dip more so than dopamine. And so in this case, when that happens, there's a few things you can address this. One is 5-HTP because 5-HTP does help make serotonin. Another one is you could do tryptophan. So like L-tryptophan. So sometimes that might be the issue. It just depends on what we see from the testing, but both of those can help support improving serotonin levels in a more natural way versus using a medication. But you got to know, you got to test to see, okay, what is the actual specific issues, right? Now, I get this a lot of testing. So, I do have a full lab protocol guide that I use with all my patients and clients. You can download that in the description below if you want to follow along and have access to that. Now, the next one, this one was also surprising to me, is that histamine. You might think, okay, isn't histamine bad? No, we do need an efficient amount of histamine because histamine is a driver for things like dopamine, GABA, and also like serotonin, like some of the very important neurotransmitters. Helps make it build and modulate those. And so if it's low, it's going to make it difficult to have efficient production of these different neurotransmitters. And the severity that I saw on this one was 64%. So 64% of the people I tested were low in histamine levels. Now, what do you do in this situation? You can take something called L-histidine to help improve these levels. Okay. So there's a 64% chance that you might have low histamine levels. Now we're getting a little bit more 50-50 here. So there could be a 50% chance or so that it's not. Well, about 40%. Okay. Now the next big one is B vitamins. So overall, I saw B vitamins as a 60% issue with the people that we tested. The most common one was vitamin B6. Now let me explain why vitamin B6 is very critical for the neurotransmitter pathway. So we talked about serotonin. You see this P5P? That is the activated form of vitamin B6. It is required to have this, enough of it to make serotonin. Now, that's not just serotonin. Let's look at the dopamine pathway. Look, P5P, 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 P5P. It all is necessary. It's required to even make dopamine. For low on that, you're not going to be able to produce efficient. I mean, you still produce it, but just not efficient enough and while you're depleted. Okay. So these other ones, vitamin B12, we would see that, and vitamin B3. Vitamin B3 is also important for the neurotransmitter pathway. So in a lot of cases, when we'll test for B vitamins, we'll see quite a few that are low. And generally, I usually just like to simplify things. We'll usually just add a B complex that has all the B vitamins, but the activated form of B vitamins supplementing that. Okay. Now, the next one, we've talked about phenylethylamine, but what about tyrosine? Right? A lot of people talk about tyrosine. Now, I would even see just slightly, this one tends to be more deficient than I will see dopamine. And in this one, it was 52%. So about a 50% chance that you might be low in tyrosine levels. Now, as you can see from here from the pathway, tyrosine is what helps make L-DOPA, then L-DOPA from dopamine. Right? So if you're low in this and let's say you're doing a medication, you're going to constantly be dependent on that medication, but you're not supplementing what helps make dopamine, things like tyrosine or phenylethylamine, right? So in that situation, yeah, I like to, if we see that low, we'll supplement something N-acetyltyrosine to help improve the tyrosine levels. I like that one because it's easier, more absorbed. Now, I said we would talk about dopamine because yes, even though all of these had a greater percentage of the people I've tested, thousands of people that were deficient in these specific things, more so than dopamine. Now, I'm not saying that dopamine is not an issue, so that's why I'm going to still talk about it. So, yes, dopamine can still be an issue, and it's still quite a bit, but it's just not as much as those other ones. So, when we test this is what surprised me. It's 48%. Still quite a bit, but it's not as much as all the other ones I just mentioned. And that's why people are missing so much when they're trying to treat their ADHD. So 48% of the problem is we'll see when I test for them, just like this case study, that they'll be low in dopamine. So we still want to address that, yes. And so there's a few things that you can do here. Muconiporines, which has L-DOPA in it. So that's more of a direct way of helping making dopamine. L-theanine also helps with this because it can improve dopamine levels. I have one called Dopa Boost. It's not a sponsored video. It's just, but what I like about it, it has Dopa Boost Dopa Boost has like things like phenylalanine in it, has L-DOPA in it, and like tyrosine and stuff in it. Okay, so this is what if you really want to tackle your ADHD and be able to understand why you're having these symptoms. It's probably not dopamine, but it could be several other things. But it's like, okay, how do I figure this out? Well, if you would like me to order these types of labs for you to find out the root cause of your biggest ADHD issues, I'd love to help you out. What you could do is you could book your first paid consultation with me, appointment with me. It's a 45-minute appointment. All you got to do is just click in the link in the description below. And I'd love to meet with you, dive into your medical history, understand the ins and outs, and figure out what lab testing we need to do to help you further tackle your ADHD situation. So thank you guys so much for attending, and I'll see you guys in the next live stream. Thanks. Bye.